the last point from the same one chapter, respiration, that is transportation in case of the animal. Now before that, all of you are very well known to that the living organisms. These living organisms, they include two types of animals, that is unicellular and multicellular. Now both these animals, either unicellular animals or either multicellular animal, both these animals in which there is exchange of material takes place. That is exchange of material. Okay. In case of unicellular animal and in case of multicellular animal also, exchange of material takes place. Now this exchange of material, it may be with their surroundings or it may be inside the cells or body. That is exchange of material, it may be of two types. Sometimes exchange of material it is with their surrounding and sometimes it is inside the body or inside the cell. For example, exchange of oxygen and CO2. That is gaseous exchange, these gases from air. Oxygen is taken in and CO2 is exhaled out. Also through the food, nutrients also taken. These nutrients, these are obtained through the food. Now all these material, it is useful for the metabolism. For which purpose? It is useful for the different metabolic activity. And this metabolic activity, it is for the functioning of the body. That is body functions performed due to this metabolic activity. Such type of exchange of the material takes place in unicellular and multicellular in both animals. Okay. Now this exchange, it is called as transportation. What is called as? Transportation in animals. Okay. This is the point given in your textbook, that is transportation in animal. Means living organism, unicellular and multicellular, they perform exchange of material. This exchange, it may be with their surrounding or it may be inside the cell. And this type of exchange, it is useful for the metabolic activity. Now this transportation in case of animals takes place with the help of different methods. Okay. The first one method, it is called as diffusion. What is called as diffusion. Now the first one method, diffusion, it means by the movement of molecules, it is from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Diffusion means what? There is movement of the molecules. That is, molecules always move from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Simply, that is descending direction. And this type of movement, it is along the concentration gradient. Okay. This is called as diffusion. For example, in case of our lungs, whatever the oxygen is present, it goes into the capillaries. This capillary consists of blood. Okay. This type of exchange of O2 and this type of CO2, this is simple diffusion. Or diffusion means what? The movement of molecules from higher concentration to the lower concentration along the concentration gradient. Okay. Now, second one method of transportation, it is called as active transport. What it called as active transport. Now in this active transport, this is called as active because this process, it is against, that is opposing, against the concentration gradient. Means here is the movement of molecules. It is from the lower concentration to the higher concentration. And this movement from lower concentration to higher concentration, such way, it requires more energy, hence it is against the concentration gradient and it is called as active transport. These two are opposite. This diffusion, it is along the concentration gradient, while this active transport, it is against the concentration gradient. Now the third one method of the transportation, that is called as cyclosis. What it called as cyclosis. Now cyclosis means it is nothing but the cytoplasmic streaming, or it is also called as protoplasmic streaming. Okay, cyclosis means what? Cytoplasmic streaming or protoplasmic streaming, or simple meaning of this word is the cytoplasm is always moving. It is not stationary. You are very well known to the animal amoeba. Suppose this is amoeba. Okay, this amoeba consists of such type of pseudopodia. Here is the vesicle cytoplasm. Okay. Now this cytoplasm, it is always moving. Sometime here, sometime here, sometime here, as like this. This cytoplasm, it is not stable. It is not stationary. It is always moving inside the body of amoeba. Such type of cytoplasmic movement is called as cytoplasmic streaming, or it is called as cyclosis. Okay. Now fourth one method of transportation, it is called as intracellular transport. Now intracellular, the word itself indicates that intra means inside the cell. What it called as? Inside the cell. Means this type of movement of the vesicles. For example, these vesicles, example, we can observe the net movement of the proteins. Okay. Actually, these proteins are synthesized on endoplasmic reticulum and they move toward the Golgi complex. This movement is called as intracellular transport. For example, if you observe the endoplasmic reticulum, this is endoplasmic reticulum. It consists of such type of protein particles and these travels toward the Golgi complex in the form of these vesicles. This is Golgi complex. Okay. These proteins transfers in the form of vesicles. This movement, it is called as intracellular movement. Okay. Or intracellular transport. Then fifth one, that is extracellular transport. Now this extracellular transport, the word itself indicates that this is outside the cell. Means transport of material, it takes place outside the cell. For example, the best examples of this is the exocytosis, then endocytosis or already in the chapter we studied about the sodium and potassium pump, or it is also called as chloride, also called as chloride shift. This chloride shift, it is also one of the example of extracellular transport. Now this exocytosis or endocytosis, these are very important terms and it will be studied in case of the simple example. If you observe the grapes, the fresh grapes, it is swallow, it is juicy and consists of more juice inside these grapes. Okay, but when these grapes, these are dry, they get shrink. Okay, and these are called as resins. What it called as resins. Here from the grapes, there is formation of resins. It is exocytosis. What is this? It is exocytosis. And if we put these dry resins in water, suppose this dry resins is put into a glass of water, and after some hours, if we observe, this is again swallowed. Now this is the process, it is called as endocytosis. Because this fresh grape, it loses the water. Hence it becomes dry resin. Exocytosis. Water goes outside the grape. And when we place this dry resin in a beaker of water, this water again goes inside this dry resin and it again becomes swallowed. This process is called as endocytosis. Such type of different methods of the transportation takes place in case of the animals. Okay. In simple, the first one process is diffusion. Diffusion means what? It is the movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. And this is along with the concentration gradient. Second, active transport. This active transport, it is the movement of molecules from lower concentration to higher concentration, and it is against the concentration gradient. Then third one, cyclosis, that is cytoplasmic streaming, that is movement of the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is continuously moved, it is not stationary. In case of the amoeba, this type of transportation called as cyclosis. Fourth one, intracellular transport, that is transport of material inside the cell. Best example is the movement of the proteins. These movements takes place from the endoplasmic reticulum to the Golgi apparatus through the vesicle. And fifth one is the extracellular transport. Extra means outside the cell. For example, exocytosis, endocytosis and sodium potassium pump. Exocytosis means when the cell loses its content outside the cell. It is exocytosis. And endocytosis means when content come inside the cell, it is endocytosis. The exocytosis, endocytosis, it is well explained with the help of example of dry resin. Fresh grapes, these are swallowed. When it dried, it becomes dry resin because it loses water. If we put into water, it again swallowed. This is endocytosis. And sodium potassium pump is also the example of extracellular transport. In case of the same chapter, we studied about this already. That is chloride shift or sodium potassium pump. Okay. These are the definitions in case of the transportation of living organism. It may be asked for the define diffusion, what is osmosis, or the explain intracellular or extracellular transport. Thank you.